Oh.
Right, so do I have to press go live on here? I think I might be. Right. There you go, lads. Right, so
What's happening?
live now, not just live across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, if I've set
Everywhere.
this up correctly, but fuck knows if I manage that. But anyway, yeah, so
Yeah. I can see it.
the Psychonautica podcast, and yeah, I'm really doing this just as a bit of like background, trying to get this while, because the people that you see in this podcast will introduce you in a moment. We've been talking for a while and really sort of wanting to get a kind of PsychTube community set up, so there's a bit of conversation going on in a similar kind of way that you'd see like there's like a political tube and like philosophy tube and all this kind of stuff. Kick off like a PsychTube, so here we are. I'm stoked that these guys could make it. So guys, first of all, much for making the time to join us here. And yeah, let's just kick off and let's just go around the room.
Thank you for having us.
Introduce yourselves. I'll tell you. Let's have what your channel name is, which platform you're on.
Oh, I've got local.
Brief.
What's up, boys?
Yes, lad.
Well, there we go.
Perfect timing.
Is there a way we could give me an invite for a desktop? I'm on my phone right now. I don't know how to get into it.
It should be. Was in the email there. I don't know if it's. Could you?
Oh, got it.
Have you not got access to your email?
It's a great intro.
Or do you want me to send it somewhere else?
No, it's perfection.
If you could send it to me on Discord, that'd be very helpful.
This just makes it feel more
Discord.
real for the people listening.
Oh yeah.
So they don't think we're all AI.
Right. Somebody says I'm lagging. Am I lagging to you guys or?
I'm Tales from the Trip. I go by the Trip Keeper, and I get trip reports, and I try to keep people safe. That's all I'm trying to do here. But have fun.
Epic. Should I go next?
Nice.
What's up, guys? My name's Marty, and I run the YouTube channel The Launchpad. I named my YouTube channel The Launchpad because that was the name that I gave my apartment where I used to have underground DMT ceremonies. And after I got out of prison, I decided that content would be a way that, you know, I could like legally further my interests and exploration into this area. And so my YouTube channel just started off with like me trip reports and stuff, and now it's evolved into different projects, and I'm connecting with, you know, people like you guys. I'm excited to be here.
Mate, we need to hear more about you going to prison. That's mad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, brother.
I'm fascinated. Right, I guess I'll go next. I'm Vivek. You might know me from the trip reports I cover on my channel. I'm like the yin to the trip keeper's yang, or vice versa. And I talk about a wide range of topics, not just based on psychedelics, anything a bit fringe, substance use, mysticism, paranormal, basically anything weird you'll probably find on my channel, to be fair.
Awesome. Tyler, do you want to go next?
It's me.
Sure. What's up, guys? My name's Tyler. Or Tyler Saucier is my full name, and my channel on YouTube is called Find the Others. And on my channel, I do trip reports. I like to do kind of like nerdy, deep dive video essays on niche topics, and then I also do interview conversational style podcasts with psychedelic creative minds. I like artists and musicians and other people like that. So that's about it.
Awesome stuff.
I guess it's me, right? Also, is there a lag in the audio?
Mine's alright.
Alright, maybe it's just me.
I've had a couple of people in chat saying that I'm lagging.
Yeah.
Is it me?
Yeah, there's some audio that I'm picking up.
I hear something in the
So you're
background.
second or two
though,
behind.
Yeah. It's probably someone's.
yeah, there's some audio in the
playing in a
background.
tab. So, I got mine on mute, so it's not mine.
Yeah, mine's on me as well.
Yeah,
Anyways,
somebody who might not have
my
headphones.
Probably my fault anyway.
Oh yeah, maybe with the headphones. My name is Jake. I run the YouTube channel Jake Knows Nothing. Basically, 20 years of my life in a fundamentalist Christian cult, and then the next 10 years in emergency medicine in the hospital, and all of those experiences led me to altered states of consciousness. It started out as psychedelics, but just kind of everything now, and that's what I document.
That's a transition right there.
Yeah, it's been a
Awesome.
few.
Yeah, well, if you find some more about that.
Christian cult.
So I guess I'll go last then. Is everyone
You
here
recovered yet, Jake?
in the chat?
Oh, I'll introduce myself. I'm Loka. I run the channel Loka Vision. I do psychedelic replications for film, and I basically make trippy visuals and send them out to YouTubers for them to use. So.
And you're really good at it, dude. You are like the best one I think I've ever seen.
Thank you, dude.
Hell yeah. It's fantastic.
It's so realistic. That's why it's like it's so good.
Yeah, it's the Don Mega,
I've
mate.
seen that shit.
Yeah, it's the first one where it really just took me back because I've seen loads of psychedelic replication. I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool, bro. But then I saw yours, I was like, man, I'm literally there right now.
Yeah.
Can I just check with you
keep going.
guys? Can you hear me okay? Is everyone...
I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can? Yeah? Just chat, can you hear me okay? If someone can just tell me, is this...
Yes, Chip.
Anybody just post? You chat. Come on, chat. Okay. Robbie's lagging. Okay. I'm lagging, so you'll
Well,
just
I
have to
see
maybe...
on. Is lagging or not?
It's all learning curves. First time, innit?
This is it, mate. I might just turn my camera off then for
It's
a
not
bit
gonna
and
be
see if that...
perfect.
No.
Yeah, we'll all go ethereal.
Yeah, we'll do this. You can hear. Introduce myself for anyone who doesn't. So I'm Bob from the channel Adeptus Psychonautica, mainly on YouTube. Really comment on psychedelic culture, do a bit of trip reporting, reviews of different retreats that I go on. A bit of a smart ass about what's going on in the world of psychedelics. I've gone around the room now. Is that everybody?
We're back in the room.
Sweet. So, I mean, the main
nice.
topic for a number of avenues, but I thought a good one to sort of things rolling is to have a bit of discussion about the psychedelic community at large, and the sort of the name of this particular one was, is there such a thing even? Are we one group with the same like goals and ideas about how these substances? So yeah, I mean, or like, you know, we could talk about like the different factions. So just sort of like go around the room. Let's say like, what's everyone's take on like
Fallout. Pretty much. Oh mate.
the Brotherhood
I
of
have
Steel?
a follow-up question to that. Actually,
Go for it.
If anyone has noticed the difference in communities between the platforms TikTok and YouTube, because I know
Definitely.
for sure it's like two different
Yeah.
worlds,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
want to know why the hell.
I
that
think.
is.
Oh my god.
I think. Tell you what, who we need to get on in the future. We need to get Trip Whip on because he's probably one of the best people to talk about this. Because I've noticed he doesn't like. Obviously, he does really well on TikTok, but like there isn't always necessarily an overlap between a community on one platform and another. And I've noticed that as well. Like some of the people who just like, some people just follow me on Instagram, like just for what I say on there, and then they don't have any interest in what I say on YouTube. So it just shows you there are, again, like as you say, different factions within the whole space.
Well, I think like
Yeah,
Gabe's got
and, like,
something
this-
similar going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
no,
gonna say
like,
you.
know, we were talking about this. We were talking about this on the Discord server, and like I was super excited because you know this is something that like I have been postulating a lot myself, and sort of like sort of my stance on a lot of this. And so I looked up the definition of a community, and it's essentially, you know, a group of people who common characteristic, goal, or interest. So I feel like in a say like we're a psychedelic community, but in a group that is here right now, like I feel like we all share these similar interests, furthering our exploration into topics like this, and sort of like helping educate people, and you know, spreading our awareness and our experiences in our own unique way. But one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is the sort of like advent behavior and thinking when it comes to psychedelic. To get all of yours perspectives on this, because what I've sort of been, I've been taking psychedelic drugs since I was 9, and I hit the ground running pretty hard, and I've just been obsessed with the culture and the community around it. And what I've been witnessing lately, sort of psychedelic renaissance, is this behavior of to be done this way, and like here's the way to do it. And like I want to make it very clear that I'm not advocating for anybody to be irresponsible or to not be safe with these things. And I think that a lot of like the education out there that exists, basic sort of like framework of like here's how you can take this thing, which, you know, when you're taking a psychedelic drug, you're standing at like this neck, you know, possibilities and ways that it can go and ways that it can affect your life. And so I think it's very basic education out there of like, all right, let's not fucking die, lose our minds, let's, you know, direct this energy into a positive thing. But with that, I'm noticing, you know, individuals and factions becoming dogmatic in the same way that I think, like if you look at organized religion, right? I think a lot of organized religion stems from this very mystical, you had mystical people going into mystical altered states of consciousness with their messages from can live better, or how I should live better, or whatever it is, and then over time this gets in certain ways and fit into this fucking box. It's used to control people, and I'm not saying that they're gonna turn psychedelics into the next like Christianity, like let's control and instill fear. I'm not saying that. I'm just like, you know, where do y'all stand with this? Like, do you think that this also becoming a bit dogmatic in terms of like, well, here's how it's supposed to be done? Because in like, I don't think it's an experience that you can fit into a box.
I agree, because I actually see it a lot on my comment section. I see a lot of people like arguing within it about, no, you should be doing it this way, like, no, you can't take it in this sort of setting, or you can't do it within this mindset. And it's like, mate, there's not just one blanket uniform way to approach these things. And I think what another thing people misunderstand is that everybody's like literal genetics, even on a physical level. The way they react to psychedelics is going to be very, very different. Like, I'm extremely sensitive to psychedelics. I only really take lower doses, and then I've got mates I've been with them and they've taken like 5 tabs, and they're basically just like, it's basically just like the high on weed or something. So unfortunately, some people will just think that they can keep doing that forever. But as I've noticed, if you take psychedelics more and more over time, your relationship often changes with them. So like, as you become more sensitive to say like these mystical ideas and sort of like these lofty ideas of like infinity, you actually well, personally, I found that I don't really need to like take fucking like 35 grams of mushrooms. And it worries me when people come to me on Instagram like, hey bro, I'm just getting into psychedelics and I'm gonna take like 10 tabs, like, do you have any advice? And like, mate, my advice is to not fucking do that. Like, please just start low and build your way up. And even you don't even need to build your way up to a point. Like, you don't always have to keep building up. You should just get to a point where you feel it works for you and like it's benefiting you, because sometimes, as we all know, you can take a lot of psychedelics and you fucking run around naked in the streets, as I have done.
Yeah.
Just a couple. So a couple of points that Jake just mentioned.
I'm sorry,
there's a lot. Is it lagging this? Is it lagging to fuck?
All right,
Sounds
you're
alright
talking
to me.
just
Right, hold on. I'll try and talk to the camera again.
Bro,
We all need like little picket signs to put up.
Yeah, I'll take you guys just talk to each other. Let me see if I can sort out this lag problem.
Just to
Okay.
while he's sorting this out, just to continue this point further, more specifically, I feel like on the extreme end of this example, I find a lot of the TikTok community to be extremely dismissive. Like, I could post one video on YouTube and everyone, like, maybe I'll get a couple hundred views of people who are supportive. I'll post that to TikTok and I'll get 10,000 views, but it'll be people who are just like, didn't happen. And it's just like, what is this community of people who are just like completely dismissing everything?
I know. I know that.
Why are you watching?
that's how it is on
I
my
got a
channel.
comment.
man.
I got a comment last night on a YouTube
Yeah.
video, and somebody, it was on a DMT trip simulation, and somebody watched it and then they commented and said, why would I have to do this? Why don't you just buy a kaleidoscope?
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
And I think that's very much like
That's like reductionism at its finest.
exactly. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting seeing people like you, Loka, because it's like we have these experiences like with DMT, so alien and otherworldly, and like almost unexplainable that you come back and one of the places like my mind immediately goes, how do I fucking put this into words? Like, I'd love to tell you about it.
I think words is
particular
the wrong
experience.
medium to put them in.
Yeah.
I think that, well, I mean, I can only do a small sliver of what the visuals kind
Yeah.
of look like, but that's just the visuals. I think the visuals for psychedelics are like I said yesterday to somebody here, it's like fur on an animal. You have the animal, but then it also has this beautiful coat on top. I think that's like the visuals to the experience. It's like sometimes the visuals are inseparable from the experience, but
Yeah.
it's just the visual, it's the visual slice of a hyperdimensional experience. But basically, yeah, never mind. I forgot what I was gonna say.
I've found that a lot of people, especially when I was younger, taking psychedelics, and just young people in general that I've noticed that I talk to when I go to like festivals or gigs or whatever, and they're on psychedelics, oftentimes they're actually just like, they're chasing the visuals. They're not really doing it, they're not even doing it recreation. They're just like, oh my god, I need more visuals, more visuals. And this can be quite detrimental to your journey, like taking psychedelics, because
Totally.
maybe you'll want to, oh well, maybe if I take like 40 tabs, I'll enter into this hyperdimensional space and it'll be sick. And it's like, mate, they don't realize the gravity of what that actually means. It's like when all these, this is one thing that really worries me. Well, not doesn't worry me, but it's a bit concerning. Like when I feature like a Datura or Salvia trip report, obviously they're usually the most extreme reports out there, and then you always get the people in the comments that's like, wow, I'd love to experience this. And it's like, mate, would you actually love to experience it though? Like, if you're in this giant interdimensional conveyor belt getting ripped to pieces, in the moment you're probably going to want to go back to your normal level of human sanity. And obviously there can be a lot of positivity to come through that, because you then will appreciate what it's like to be sane. But there's always that risk of getting PTSD, and it's like playing with a loaded gun, isn't it, really? And people don't realize the seriousness of it.
I think that actually can be tied into the last point pretty well, though, is because, like, we were talking about psychedelics being used in different settings, or there's different, like, groups of psychedelic communities, instead of just one group of psychedelic community. I think there's lots. There's people who use it to socialize and party. There's people who use it to learn how to fly and learn how to leave their body. There's people who use it to help with their programming and maybe their coding for some Silicon Valley company. But I think, like, yeah, I've used psychedelics in social settings and loved it before. Sometimes I've used it in social settings and hated it. Sometimes I've used it for spiritual, my spiritual journey, and then sometimes it's actually set me back on my spiritual journey. So it's like, I don't think there is one use case for psychedelics whatsoever. I think it can be used in so many different ways, but I think that there's so many variables where it's like, to get your set and setting and your dosage and your preparation right, sometimes it's very difficult because you can't see the future and you can't figure out like where you go wrong with the preparation. But also it's like, I've done mushrooms like 3 days in a row with no preparation, and it was like the best possible trip that I've had in my life. So it's just like, these things are just so tricky to get right, and I think a lot of people will gatekeep where you're allowed to do them and when you should only do them, and these like strict rules. But it's just like, I don't think we have practiced these things enough as a collective to be able to determine what the right or the wrong way to use them really is. So that's a very tricky thing. And also it's like, how much do you take? Well, everyone has different sensitivity levels, but also it's just like, how much do you take for what setting and things like that. So you're talking about like 35 grams of mushrooms, or taking a bunch at a festival or something to get visuals, and it's like,
there's some people who take psychedelics
so
who are normal, and then there's ones who are just crazy addicted to seeing like these visuals and stuff. And it's like, every time I hear someone do a heroic dose, because if I was in those shoes, I would probably be in a hospital. I can only handle such a little amount now. It's crazy. Back in high school, I'd be able to do a whole bunch. I was not afraid. But now I think, since I've done psychedelics a lot, I know what that leads to. So I know, I'm more careful with it now. But
it grounds you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I've seen the same thing myself. It's almost like this trap that people fall into, and of just experiential. Like Loka was saying, it's who has the right to tell you how you and where do you draw that line between what as recreation and what you classify as ceremony. Experiences of what other people might classify responsible, don't do that, but I go out in the woods with my best friend and we hike and take 3 grams of mushrooms each or something, and like that experience to me, in this weird way, and so a lot of people might not get that. Was spiritual to me in like a huge part of my self-growth, taken within your ritualized context of like having the big, and not that like I am shitting on anybody's feather, but it's like
a lot of people get up in arms about people doing psychedelics in a religious fashion, but not with a shaman. They're like, oh, this is disrespectful to the substance and the way it's used in culture. It's like, mate, it's antithetical to the whole psychedelic experience to be strict in the way you treat it. Like the whole point is like opening your mind, isn't it? Like closing your mind off to the fact that people use it in different ways is like quite sad, I think, and that's one thing that the psychedelic community in general sort of needs to like look deeply into the mirror and realize, right, I do have a problem with controlling people.
To kind of further that point, would you guys agree that
dogging it,
calling it a psychedelic community is almost like painting it into a corner in a restrictive way, where at least for me personally, these psychedelic experiences are so they're like a fundamental part of my human experience now. It's so fully integrated into who I am. It's hard to separate. And so I feel like calling it, like trying to talk about a psych, it's just being human and taking these weird fucking plants that grow on this planet. It's not even, it's just like our human right. I feel like maybe I'm too much of a hippie on that. I don't know.
Nah, I fully agree. I mean, it goes without saying, doesn't it?
And and about like people get all up in arms, like you have to do it with, and like go to my shaman Dave over here. He's really got. And like one thing I've been thinking about is like, one thing I've been thinking about is like, so like how classify and sort of establish the modern day shamanism, holding respect for these sort of like ancient traditions swimming in these waters for a long time while merging that with our modern world and modern problems. Like it's great that you can go down to South America and like I think that's amazing, but think about like these are modern men like facing modern problems, living in this is detached from down there, and so like
there's gonna be that disconnect.
I've had experiences, man, where like what's the definition of a shaman? Maybe somebody who helps heal you. I don't know what like your definition experiences where like I have been my own shaman, or that I'm playing certain music from has been a shaman for me, or like my best friend who I know loves me like dearly and has my best intentions at have the biggest feather in the room, but that dude like has got my back no matter what, and I trust him. And like in those moments, he's been my shaman. To me, I just like encourage like people to sort of think for themselves when it comes to this, and anybody's shaman, if you've got the biggest feather, like I want to see that thing. I want to see you put it to work, but also,
I think that what I understand the definition of a shaman is, just from what I've picked up over time, is that a shaman is probably somebody who can see the other side, and they understand where you're at in your trip, and they can help not only navigate, but then help you after the trip further understand what it is that was happening. I think they have some in their mind, they've opened some portal into seeing behind the veil, and they like I have a close buddy of mine. He's done tons of ayahuasca ceremonies, tons of mescaline ceremonies, and like he has this one story of this shaman, some old woman. she just sat in the corner during a ayahuasca ceremony, and then the next day she wanted to speak with him, so he comes over and starts talking to her, and she's just sitting there, and she basically describes to him what he went through, down to little details, and he just knew that she saw it the same way he saw it. And so I think that there's this deeper magical sort of like this quantum consciousness field that we can reach on psychedelics, but I think that some people on Earth have figured out how to see into these experiences without necessarily having to take the substance. So I think that there's so much mystery around psychedelics, and I think that we're still in our infantile stages as a society to understand how these things actually work as tools. So
yeah, we're still in dark ages, aren't we? Really?
Yeah. Can I just come in on that
just
one?
like when I'm yeah.
Okay, but I'll just come in on that one, 'cause I just on the shaman topic, because I think you raised, and but I think there is a difference describe of, you know, your friend who's a trip sitter, or your, you know, an object which is doing something meaningful. I think when we talk about shaman, it's not one who hands out cups of drugs and who is a trip sitter. We're talking is specialized in a certain field. In this, someone who gives you a book is not a librarian. You know, a librarian is someone who is specialized in that. Even what we might consider quite a simple task of, you know, managing books, but a shaman, I would say, is someone who has like absolutely path to the point where it is just, you know, they are just familiar with that experience, almost in a way, sort of want and need from the experience before you even sort of realize that you do. So it's kind of very hard to, without trying to sound too wishy-washy, it without sort of, sort of experiencing it yourself. But I do think there's a difference, just like you would say there's a difference between like a nurse and there is a specialization there.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Well, in a way, yeah, and that's sort of what I was describing with my friend. Is, you know, this is an individual who has also swam in these waters a lot and knows me intimately, knows my entire story. Best interest to help me integrate this thing, and and the reason why I keep like Shaman Dave and the Biggest Feather is because, like, one of the things that Terrence McKenna used to say is like, be. And I think that we are going to run into like a lot of fake gurus out here, because if you think about it, like with these experiences, you know, how y'all feel about this based on your experiences, but like when I've thrown myself into the depths of the DMT experience or whatever it is, I don't leave there with the feeling of like, oh, I can run this shit. It's quite the opposite. It's like I'm an infant in a And I think that for some people, now I do definitely believe that there is some badass IO there who have, some standing for sure and can help you in that aspect. Like, I think that you're kind of playing with fire, and some people, I think, can be arrogant about like, well, I'm
sure
protects you in there. I think that some people can carry that arrogance, and that can be dangerous.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I just say that I think there are definitely levels to this, and like Rob said, there is a huge difference. I find it super fascinating. Like, I've never actually worked with an actual ayahuasquero or a shaman, but I hear stuff about how, certain tribes like the Shipibo can sing and knowingly how it's going to affect the visual tapestry of what you see. And like, to me, that's an amazing superpower that could only have resulted from years and years in like developing that culture. Meanwhile, over here in the West, we don't have the figure of a shaman, so we're kind of like the equivalent of someone building a car out of like scrap parts, and we're like, I don't have a shaman, but I got my friend here who's like seen some shit, and like they have their heart open, and a friend like that is, was the catalyst for my life-changing experience too. So it's like, we got to work with what we got for now.
brother.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm just trying to monitor what's going on situation. So
Seems to,
I can hear you guys clear,
So-
but apparently it seems like they're a
Yeah.
little bit.
So I didn't really want to talk about this at all, but it sure feels like it's an appropriate
Do
time. So so I don't really know how to fucking talk
Palpatine.
about this because it sucks. But like the last couple of mushroom experiences that I've had have been pointing me in that direction of shamanism, and I don't know what the fuck to do about it. It's not what I wanted at all. But like I don't know how to even talk about that or share it or conceptualize it with people without automatically feeling like a phony and feeling like a fake guru. But I'm just
Okay.
trying to like
You're phony.
share. Right, like that's what I feel. I just want to share this stuff so someone can tell me, "Hey, you're not crazy." But at the same
Yeah.
time, like it's just inherently crazy.
Yeah.
I think that if you pay close enough attention, you can really figure out whether or not the mushroom is. I mean, you can interpret things a lot of ways, right? So maybe that's not what it's saying, but if that is what it's saying, I think maybe you should just sit down and meditate, or maybe eat them again, and then
Yeah.
really try to confront it. But I think that
'Cause-
if you know what the answer is, you know. I think
The
that's
integration
problem.
process is oftentimes the most important part about taking psychedelics. Like the window between like a really radical trip and like your next radical trip is actually sometimes more informative to what you actually need to be doing than the insights within the trip itself. I know that definitely for me because I don't trip like as often as I used to when I was younger, but I also feel like at this stage of my life I actually don't need to, because a lot of the insights I was searching for about my life and the universe and etc. have solidified for this point in my life. And sometimes when I take psychedelics now, the experience can be slightly numb to what I expected of it, especially having been younger, having all these mad experiences. And usually it's just reiterating everything that I know. So that's made me think lately about like the famous Alan Watts quote, the once you get the message, hang up the phone, which can different ways, I think. And for me, I interpret it now like for my personal life, where it's like, at this point in my life, I've got the message and I'm going to hang up the phone, but it doesn't mean that it'll always stay shut, the phone. It's going to ring at one point again where I'm to lead you until my next sort of stage of development. And I know for me, a lot of the things that have been like holding me back from like developing is like sort of been seeking too much through psychedelic experiences rather than being content with what they've shown me or what they are showing me. And again, that's a problem in the community. Too many people seeking and chasing and not being satisfied with what they've got.
Yeah,
Jake,
I think
do you
with
feel
that.
like-
Sorry, go on.
Jake, do you feel like that this call to whatever this is, it has directly to do with like helping to facilitate other people's experiences? Because the case could be made that, you know, artists are shamans, that they're bringing, like Loca's a freaking shaman over here, actually bringing stuff back from the
Right.
other world.
Right. So I guess to clarify my own definition of shamanism, which would probably help, I've come to the conclusion that it's basically a person who has naturally learned the ability, or through some ceremony unlocked the ability to kind of stand one foot in both worlds, one in this world and one in the spiritual world, and then navigate that, whether for yourself and then relaying that information to other people, or actually like hands-on guiding other people. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I can't guide, and I can barely guide myself. I'm not an ayahuasca shaman. I've never even taken ayahuasca, so I'm not claiming to be anything like that. But at the same time, I'm having these overwhelming experiences where my psychedelic trips are spilling over into my everyday life. It's not HPPD. I haven't taken psychedelics. The only conclusions that I've found that have been satisfying are ones heavily steeped in shamanism and reading those texts and understanding those cultures. And that's like, it feels preposterous, but that is the only place that I've found solace and understanding.
Sounds like it's the calling for you, really, then.
Sucks.
I take it as a
Well, that is-
blessing.
I
I
mean-
don't know. You see it that way. Like, I wish I can, psychedelics don't affect me the way they used to. I think the anxiety and depression that I've gotten over the years is just really affected the way I want to, see psychedelics. Like even a microdose nowadays, visuals. Like it's not like strong visuals, but I think it might have to do.
Gonna diagnose it, but I definitely have the symptoms for it. But yeah, I don't know. I take it as a blessing. I see it
as a positive experience because I can't go back to that now. I'm trying to find it, but it's just I don't know. Is there like a way to go back to that? Like I don't know. Maybe you guys can. Give
You
some
can
insight
never
on
go
that.
back.
Probably not. I'm trapped in hell.
I think
Once you've opened Pandora's box, there's no shutting it, is there really?
that's it.
I can
I
confirm.
think just back to Jake's topic on shamanism, and the way I kind of think of it, and certainly from talking to some of these guys in South America, then they sort of it's really, and I think also this is to Gabe's point about like what is a shaman. A shaman is someone who is in service to others. That is the point. It's not there to be a kind of like a trip sitter or to be the kind of like even like and I fully get what you're saying, Gabe, about someone who's got a very intimate friend, and that can be, that's a space between you and your friend where there's no room or necessity for a shaman in that. But a shamanic sort of led thing, I think, is a completely different kettle of fish. And I think, yeah, that is somebody who is just, they are mediating this experience with the sort of transcendent in service to you. And I'll tell you what, last time I was in South America, and I was sat there as I'm like a really fucking rough night, and this shaman came over and just singing, and I just thought, fucking hell, this is just so beautiful. Because whether you think this whole thing is complete bullshit or not, this guy is sat there singing his fucking heart out for hours in the belief that this is going to make me better. Now, whether that belief is true or not, it's just such a beautiful thing to sing for another human's well-being, like while they're going through this fucking extraordinary experience. And it melted my heart. It opened my soul. I was like, this is fucking beautiful. This guy, he doesn't know me. He doesn't speak my language. I've got no idea what the fuck he's saying, but he is trying to talk to God for me. He's trying to negotiate with God for me to be better, and we've hardly exchanged any words. It's that level of service. I think that's what it means to be a shaman, and that's like I said, mate, like it's a totally different thing. To be able to do that for strangers is a totally different thing to like me doing it with my wife. That's intimacy, but I would never say my wife is my shaman. That's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
I'll just throw that one back at you guys.
Like what Rob just said, Jake, like, is it sort of like this call to service in this way? Because, you're obviously interested in these things. It's just spread, and that's evident by you being here at your YouTube. And Loka was saying, like, I think you should like meditate on that and really like I'm with him, like, because like what is, you're this first century man in a Western society having these experiences and feeling this calling, and you live in Pennsylvania. It's like, what are your next steps here? If they really feel like called to do and a path to walk, is the next South America? Is it to continue to find a mentor? Is it, no, man, like, and that's something you have to ask yourself, like, what's up?
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, man.
Well, maybe this is something we can talk about, because we're talking a lot about like these kind of traditional sort of things, but what does this actually look like for us in Western society? It's one thing to go and take like a trip to South America, but this is not scalable for the entire world as we talk about this psychedelic renaissance. So let's just go around the room. What do you, is this like, do we need to invent a kind of Western shamanism, a Western tradition? Is it already there? Well, fucking there's me and Vivek know there's fucking liberty caps growing all over fields in England, but where's our shamanic tradition?
They're in my fucking back garden, mate.
they're in your cupboard.
I know, mate.
We're watching it right now.
Yeah.
I think we're watching it right now.
if you watch a lot of them really interesting Vice documentaries, the way they sort of like, especially in like cities like Manchester in the UK, where they have sort of like these semi-underground, it's sort of shamanic in a sense, isn't it? But it's sort of like a casual, say like Western approach to it, rather than like a sort of hardcore spiritual approach. And loads of people go there and they have amazing healing experiences, and in a way that is sort of paving the way for more of these to come about. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, we talk about this stuff as if it's like completely normal, but it's really not. I mean, it's fucking illegal in most places. It's illegal in the UK to possess, and even like, it's even a grey area to talk about on YouTube. I know a lot of us deal with like demonetization and that, but every single year we make it paving the way for it and stuff like, again, these them Vice type documentaries on the underground healing centers and that. I think that's our way of sort of incorporating the shamanic aspect into our sort of like, down to earth Western culture in a sense.
Yeah, and like in America, there's a bunch of these like legal gray area type of psychedelic churches that a lot of them even have websites. They're like, hey, here's where we are, here's what we do. By the way, if you're a fee, then you can order an ounce of mushrooms from us. Like, looking this up, I can I can send you the links, guys. But like, so there's this whole, I don't want to call it industry, but like, there's a lot of these churches. I think is sort of like beautiful about that is if you think about a church or what you're automatically getting by being a part of that, aside from the whole psychedelic aspect of it, you're getting a community of people who are showing up there of bettering themselves and improving themselves to improve and all of that. And I think that has benefits in and of itself. And then on top of that, you're getting like-minded individuals who are like, I've also had these crazy experiences with mushrooms. This, let's talk about this. And then also, if we want to do mushrooms together, now we have a somewhat and discuss it and have this discourse. And so it goes is like, how do we like grow this thing and let all the beautiful flourish? How do we let all the beautiful aspects flourish without, like I was saying earlier, putting it into this box? You know what I mean?
Well, I think I have got a few ideas around this, and I've kind of been a bit flippant with it in the past, like saying like we need to start a sort of DMT cult. But and I am sort of taking the piss, but I'm only sort of. I think the model which I've thought would work best is, because we do need to recognise that there is something that organised religion has done right, and the thing it's done right is that it has places where you can go and be part of that community for free. So it's not about spending thousands on going on retreats. Any fucker can walk down the street into the nearest church and be part of something. So there's something there that's kind of worth kind of like thinking about, like how we can like replicate that without capturing all that baggage of church and religion. And I think the closest thing that I thought to it is a kind of a model, something around similar to biker gangs, like Hell's Angels or something like that. In where you have no, just bear with me. So like where you have basically like localized chapters with a meeting point. So you've got local groups who have their own sort of like manifestos, their own leaders. So it's not like everyone's got to follow the exact same religion. But then these local chapters meet up in like mega events. You have biker rallies, so all the different chapters meet up, and they've all got something in common. They've all got their own different ways, but they meet up and have these kind of big events. And then you have these sort of like mega events where they do big cross country things. So I kind of thought this in like the kind of context of psychedelics. You would have like, if you could have local clubhouses where it was just like people drop by, not necessarily getting off the tits all the time, but just as a community thing going on. And then around that, you've got the online community. So people making videos, making content, Discord servers, all that stuff. Yeah. And then you've got these kind of like mega events. I guess like an example is like Burning Man, or, some kind of like music festival where...
Yeah, festivals in general have that energy.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what I think it's that. I think the bit that's missing, the bit that the psychedelic, what we call the psychedelic community has got, I would say we've got shit tons of the online stuff, but it's not really glued together well. We've got so much of the physical meeting places. The only thing, the closest thing we've got are these very expensive retreat centres, which is just not accessible to everyone. So we need more of this kind of this clubhouse, this easily accessible kind of meeting point. And that's where my mind's gone to, because I think I probably had similar thoughts to you, Jake. It's like, well, how do I be of service here? How do I give something back? Like, I don't think I'm a fucking shaman at all. I don't think I'm the guy who's like
like rolling on the floor with fucking hell, this is a bit strong. There's no
That's
way
me
I'm
all
gonna be-
over as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to be singing for 4 hours straight. But I do think what I do think I'm good at is organising shit, and I think I could probably organise run one of these sort of clubhouses and get people in there, and then bring in other people to do all the spiritual shit. So now that was my kind of model. What do you think of that, guys?
Can I jump in here real quick? So
Please do.
this ties in perfect. So this is exactly one of the experiences that this mushroom spirit or whatever the fuck keeps presenting to me, and why I keep pointing towards shamanism or whatever. So I keep seeing these visions of the future, I guess, and it's of this like a psychedelic summer camp type location that we will create, where basically it's just like a free range summer camp where you can go to different activities and go, learn from a Buddhist monk, learn from guided meditators, go to do yoga, and try all these different types of like spiritual modalities, all in a safe area. Or if you want to have, the ayahuasca ceremony, you can go down to the lower end of camp and go try that out. But there's still this common theme where everyone is exploring spirituality. Even though they're using different tools, they're still doing it together. I don't know how the hell we'll be able to accomplish something like that, but I can tell you from seeing it, it's dope.
Serious bit of clairvoyance, that.
Well,
So Rob,
yeah,
get on it.
Yeah, I
explain
think you're
what
absolutely
this
right, mate.
mushroom spirit is? Or-
What's that?
I want to know what this mushroom spirit, like, who's this person, who's this thing that's like telling you to do this?
It's me.
The,
That's
Have
my
you-
buddy Eric.
besides,
Have you guys seen the Trip Whip video about eyes that he recently put out?
Yeah, that quality, that.
That's what I'm seeing all the time. I'm meeting these angels. I don't know how to fucking talk about it without like just throwing myself in a psych ward, but that's what's happening. That's what they're telling me this
We're already
shit.
in
I don't
one.
know. They
Psychedelic
keep-
ward.
Yeah, I keep astral projecting places. I don't know. I don't know, man.
The CIA would be all over you.
Right? Yeah, come on. If
Maybe
they
that's
have
who it is.
answers, I'm willing to listen.
But that's
Yeah, a lot of
interesting
people
because-
talk about it, don't they?
Yeah, there is a very close association with what would be typically recognised as psychosis, and this kind of this call to shamanism. It's I mean, the guy who gave me this mug, Harry Pack sort of artist, like he describes his condition, and by any sort of modern medical things, he's absolute bananas. No, he's not in my eyes. He's a very like grounded sort of guy, but he is having pretty extraordinary experiences in communicating with things that are not there, and he's managed to channel it into his art. But yeah, he's very open that if he tried to get a normal job, he'd just be
who is this?
locked up because he's bananas.
Yeah, so I've heard of this person before. I think does he have an Instagram as well? So I've been following him for quite a
Yeah, it's
while.
all over Insta. Yeah.
And it's sort of like,
I'd
Yeah,
love
what's
to
his
talk
name
to
again?
this guy.
mate, we need to get him on.
I will do, but I'm actually he's going to be on my my channel soon. Like he's,
Oh,
one of
great.
my mates, so he's a really really good guy.
Yeah,
Well,
his
yeah, I mean,
artwork's
that's
absolutely
what-
amazing.
Like I said before, like I worked in medicine. I worked in the ER. I worked with psych patients for over a decade. Like I know that on paper I am clinically psychotic. I am experiencing the
man.
clinical symptoms of schizophrenia. But at the same time, I think there might be more. Maybe we're just misunderstanding that label of schizophrenia. I don't know, but I'm willing to put myself on the line to figure it out.
I love being
Yeah, it's
fucking
not-
mental, me.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because on the one hand, like I mean, I don't think any of us here are really particularly qualified to say, yeah, this is fine or yeah, this is not fine. But I would kind of
No.
agree with the sentiment, and I think a lot of, like I said, what people would normally recognise as the call to shamanism. Now we're in this kind of modern society where everything has to be super structured and orderly, and if you don't fit that template, then yeah, you're a fucking nutcase, and let's start shoving pills down your neck. I mean, I've just been through this kind of shit with my wife. It was like she was struggling, just like fucking pills, woman, take pills, until she was out of her fucking mind. So yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just I don't think we're necessarily meant to live the way that we're living. So I guess there's something there about like how society needs to change to fit around these kind of things, or even just fit around this psychedelic renaissance. Because really, what we're talking about when we're taking psychedelics is basically sort of controlled psychosis or barely controlled psychosis.
Yeah.
Is society ready for that? I don't think so.
There's this quote. I don't know who said it, but it's basically like the the what is it? It's like the yogi and the psychotic swim in the same waters.
Yeah,
But one of
that's a
them
great quote.
knows how to navigate it. It's something along those lines.
One of them's drowning.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've done a lot of drowning in my time.
I think that a lot of cases, like, you can be on the verge. Like, there's this J. Cole bar in one of his songs. He says, like, teetering on the fence between enlightened and insanity. And it's
There's
like,
a fine line, isn't there?
barely. It's,
Yeah,
it's
there is no
like
line. The line's
like
imaginary.
It's a whole ocean.
And
of,
like
you know,
Bob said, I mean, it's kind of a crazy world that we live in. Completely, in so many ways, it's not natural, and we're not truly living in a sort of like, you know, and so to actually be somewhat sane and have some sanity about yourself in this insane world, the rest of the other people who are playing like the insane game are going to point at you and be like, that dude's fucking crazy.
Insane.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's like, Jake, like I've experienced similar emotions to like what you're describing, man, of, you know, going through the, made a video on my YouTube channel called the HPPD or whatever, and it's like, is that even like the right word to use? Is it psycho PD? Is it some sort of shamanic initiation? But there was this 2 to 3 month stint of feeling like my consciousness was altered even when I was sober, and it's like, how do you, where was my sort of like, all I had was like people like you guys like some old, like, you know, the cosmic serpent talking about, you know, shamanic initiation. I don't know, like that.
I've had a 3-month trip without taking anything. It's because I quit weed cold turkey after having like a really high tolerance to weed. I just quit one day after a mushroom trip, and then the next 3 months as like moderate psychedelic visuals, things were moving, hallucinations, and my dreams were just out of control. I dream for like a week and come back. Like
yeah, I've had that as well. It's crazy.
Just and everything was all of my senses were heightened, just like psychedelics. I was having these massive like epiphanies hit me like a train, like every hour. It was just like a pretty strong psychedelic experience, relatively speaking, and it was like that for 3 months, and the doctors didn't know what it was. Nobody knew what it was, but people thought I was going crazy. But I was like, during that 3 months, I learned so much, and I think that the function in the brain that is tripping is something that that we still just, as a Western society as a whole, just don't have any framework that makes sense of a
you've got to be
theory of
humble
what
and
it
admit
is.
you don't know.
And that's the best
Just
thing
drugs.
about it.
Just drugs on your brain.
Just drugs in it, lad.
That's actually something that really relieved me one day when I realized that I'm a baby in a cradle. I don't know all of it. Like I don't have everything figured out, and that relieved me at some point, because I was like, oh, that's good. So there's way more to learn. This isn't the end all be all. Like there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I think
that's comforting in a way.
Yeah, this ties back to what the kind of like, you know, the whole topic when we're saying like about, you know, the psychedelic community, and is it one thing or is there different factions in it? Because there certainly are these, you know, certain factions in it who would say the opposite. They're not humble, and they don't say that there's any, they say this is completely understood, and this might be people who are either very hardcore sort of science or materialism, where they say no, it's just drugs, there's nothing to work out here, it's just drugs. Or it could be, you know, some of these people who like, you know, these guru types who like, oh no, I've got it absolutely figured out, it's this and this. And I just think
they're both problematic.
Well, it's just boring.
Or it's demons.
Like or demons or aliens. But like,
It's a demon.
It's so much. Isn't it better just to have it like, have the mystery and still have it like where it's like, you know, you're just in awe and wonder at what's going on, rather than like, oh yeah, this is I know what this is, it's algebra. It's like, fuck off.
Yes.
It completely removes the magic from the experience when you think you know everything. And it's just the ego really talking. It's like, oh my god, we got it all figured out. And it's like, no, I don't know shit here.
Well, they need to take more then because they haven't gone
Yeah,
across this.
it needs to take bromo. It needs to take like bromo dragonfly for a week or something.
None of this makes sense to us now, but imagine what our hominid ancestors felt like a million years ago.
No, mate.
Seeing hyperdimensional
They
entities.
probably had a better grasp on it.
Honestly, if you think about it.
It was God, man.
They were more nature than we were.
Explanation.
Imagine being the first little monkey that took a psychedelic. You'd be like, fuck
Okay.
me, what have I just done?
What do you guys think about
I get-
the stoned ape theory? That is, I believe
solid.
it. You guys,
I think there's credence to it. I don't think like McKenna's a great guy, absolutely influential, amazing. But for anyone who studies him knows like oftentimes he could get a bit lofty with his ideas. But the whole like the general foundation of that idea is just it makes so much sense to me. Like, mate, I'm a chimp, I'm hungry, I'm probably just gonna pick up some random mushy art and start scanning it. Like, just makes so much sense. But how it actually affects like the future of humanity is like it's just all speculation, isn't it?
No, every
makes
time I
total
eat
sense. And not a-
mushrooms, I feel like I get this this primal monkey urge to go run around barefoot and swing through trees, right? I get sort of this monkey
Return to
feeling.
monkey, innit?
Yeah, but it's going in
Return
that
to monkey.
direction in the past, but then I'm also getting these feelings of like evolving further from this point and like it sort of sheds light on both directions.
It's an Ouroboros.
all at once, you know, and then that also
gotta
gives
pick
me
which way to
more
go.
insight as to what I am here, you know. And I definitely believe the stoned ape theory. I think that it's in the right direction of thinking about human evolution. Totally.
It's how
I think
most
of it
Yeah, I
more-
feel like anyone's.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
I think anyone who's had these sort of experiences where you've taken like felt self growth and maybe you felt like you got some sort of cosmic download or whatever. Easy to see that stoned ape theory. and be like, well, yeah, like intuitively feel into that. Like, yeah, if I was a monkey, I can see how this might have my growth or our growth over however many hundreds of thousands of years, and not just even like level like that. Like, I also get really obsessed with like, did psychedelics play in the formation of religion and
That's a great question, and there's so many parallels you can see between religion and the psychedelic experience. Like, and then obviously even just like on a very like normal level, you see all these illustrations from sort of like historical antiquity, and you see like allusions to mushrooms and sort of like entities and etc. So there's 100% a connection. I think anyone who denies that probably isn't looking into it very hard or thinking about it deeply enough.
I'll tell you what, there's one thing that I'm going to have to chip in there because I'm actually just making a video about it at the moment. It's one of my personal bugbears is like this thing of where, first of all, I'd just say I totally agree with that. In terms of, I think a lot of religion is kickstarted by psychedelics, and I think that's probably the element of the stoned ape theory that I do agree with. Not that it's necessarily kickstarted evolutionary change, but I think it kickstarted cultural change, like the sort of like vocabulary and stuff. But yeah, one of the things that like really gets on my fucking tits is when like people go looking through things like religion, stuff like that, and try and relate everything to DMT, and I was like the burning bush with Moses and the burning bush. It's like
that's the classic.
Yeah, it was an acacia bush, and so the bush was on fire. So when Moses was talking, and I'm like, right, get the fuck out of it. Have you ever tried smoking DMT? You can't just stand next to a burning fucking bush and get high. It's really fucking complicated. You have to get it in you. Like you can't just be up a mountain in a wide open space with fucking goats nibbling on you, and you're off your tits because a bush is on fire next to you. It's the most ridiculous. Like, fuck off, mate. Stop trying to make everything about DMT.
My favourite is when they're like, what if Jesus was a mushroom? Like, that's the other classic one as well.
yeah, no, like it.
Well, no.
Yeah, no, and we also have to ask ourselves when you look at some of these cultures, like, and how much we don't know about them, like just like the and Graham Hancock's work and all these different things. It's like, all right, so we have DMT now, like, we have access to that now, but who's to say that they didn't have access to this or that we'll never get access to? Or there's all sorts of rabbit holes you can go down with that one.
I would even go down a more simpler rabbit hole with this one, because what I started doing was I obviously explored the psychedelic realms, but then I started hearing these like near-death experiences and these deep like hypnosis meditation experiences, and it all sounded psychedelic too. And so obviously I couldn't replicate the near-death stuff, so I tried the meditation stuff, and like I can confirm I am having the same psychedelic experiences that I would have on like higher doses of mushrooms that I can achieve on deep levels of meditation. So it doesn't even need to be that they figured out how to synthesize DMT. Maybe they were just really good at learning how to meditate and still accessing these same energetic levels of consciousness.
100%. Because they talk about Jesus going into the desert, don't they, and like starving himself for like 30 days, 30 nights, whatever it was, which can induce a mystical experience. Yeah, exactly, same thing.
Yeah.
Just a different way of getting there.
There's this.
When Rob was talking about the burning bush, I do psychedelic visuals all the time with VFX, but a lot of times it looks like things are burning or melting or regenerating consistently, like deforming and reforming. So I think the term burning, a lot of things in the Bible can be interpreted different ways. But when I think about the burning bush and it's speaking to him, it sounds like he's tripping. Like I've heard Ram Dass talk about like going into a decent state of meditation, and he said he used the word burning when he described everything around him starting to move, and that tied the connection in my mind with the burning bush. So maybe there are similarities, but just playing.
Yeah, I think this ties into what we were saying before about that. I think there is a core ancestor, core root between psychedelic experience, religious experience. I mean, if you go into a lot of like really early, the stuff on the walls, this is book. I mean, some of the I've been on holiday in Sicily, and some of the churches there were just like a DMT episode. It was bananas. And clearly something.
One of the most famous ones is in Iran, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
mean,
that
really
it's like a DMT temple. I'd love to go there.
There's this quote, and I bring this quote up all the time. Conversation turns into like this avenue. I bring it up because it's very applicable. I feel like once said something like, my teachings are like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't look at me, or don't look at the finger. And you know what you're talking about, like all of these different perspectives to the moon with our individual fingers. Like here's how you get to it. Like it's all the same juicy source. It's the moon, but we all have this perspective and like way where like you have to get there this way from my perspective and my and my sort of social conditioning. Like I just love that quote, because when you look at all of these different viewpoints that we and then you extrapolate that out to all the different viewpoints as with the afterlife and spirituality and religion, it's like, okay, so people have been communing with something for a very long time, and like that'd be through meditation, psychedelic drugs, breath work, darkness retreats, whatever it was. There's some sort of like other thing that felt it too. So I don't know. Maybe it's the fucking moon.
Psychedelics are like the
that's a great point.
To the moon.
Yeah,
it's a great point, because I also relate to that in some sense, because I have a lot of people coming to me about like the content of the trip reports and all the other sort of like philosophical, mystical stuff I talk about, and then like, please can you explain to me in layman's terms what it means? And I was like, mate, you're missing the deep aspect of what I'm trying to sort of point you towards, is that the answers lie within you yourself, and that's like one of the deepest beauties of psychedelics, is sort of having the insights come about through direct experience, because again, like psychedelics are just amplifying your consciousness, and a lot of the times the insights aren't coming from like an external source, they're coming from within, aren't they? And that's a problem within the psychedelic community, where people are expecting like a guru or whatever. It could be any sort of guru, and there's so many examples of them where it's like, well, he said this is true, so it must be true, and then they have an experience that sort of contradicts that, and then they deny their own experience because they've been like indoctrinated from over consuming a guru's teachings.
And the point of dogma, then it's just, it's this person said this.
Yeah.
To what you just said, like what is the answer? It's the human experience. You are a human. a human experience. Just have it, and it's fucking bonkers, and it's beautiful, and there is, you know, this. I mean, there's so much of this experience which we just kind of get overlooked, and that sometimes you do need the kick you in the ass and just sort of remind you. But there is just something. Yeah, point at the moon and fucking sing to a campfire, and this is your campfire. This moment means something is going. Means something. What does it mean? Fuck if I know, but it means something. It's fucking beautiful, and you know, it's, you know, and it's like I don't get like trying to find that quantify everything or it's like, you know, the examples you always use is like, yeah, you could say like, you know, childbirth, meat moving through a vagina, but it's not something extremely fucking here, like, you know, it's like falling in love. You know, like fucking the first time you have an orgasm, it's meaningful. Like, don't ask me to explain it any more than that. I can't. Well, you know.
Yeah, mate. Imagine witnessing the birth of your child and being like, "Oh well, it's not anything. It's nothing special, is it? It's just a bit of flesh." Like, it's like, mate, you've really lost the plot then.
Right.
There's no difference between that and this kind of pedigree. The same fucking thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I suppose, but like with like moving on to sort of like next sort of talk. What do you think this? What would the ideal like psychedelic community look like then? I mean, because we've got all these different things coming into the mix. We've got things like, you know, first of all, they are blossoming out over the planet. Eyes all over here. We've got things like coming in of, you know, possible link and cybernetic, like the possibility that you might be able to build psychedelic experience against like Matrix kind of shit, all this AI stuff. I mean, what are your thoughts on like?
I would try Locus.
Go in. Yeah. Locus gonna be
Mate,
a drug
hook me
dealer
up to that.
Yeah.
I'd live inside it.
Honestly, like
I need
where I
some
stand
time,
with
but
it.
I'm working on it.
Where I stand with it is like, how do we build this sort of like ideal future psychedelic community? It's like what we were just talking about, you know, it's like, how do we set up this framework and honor all of the ancient traditions and merge that? But I want to throw this like very important point in here of like, how do we have this sort of middleman that in this very safe, like, you know, efficient, like true manner of that, but also reminding people the middleman, you know, and like like Vivek was saying, like, it is your connection,
Can we just unpack what the we're talking about shamanism again with the middleman? Are we talking about like the government or like medicals?
Someone to bridge.
Yeah,
the
I guess
gap,
you can say like
anyone.
any of it, and like again,
A Bible.
with the middle, I do believe that we need, and that, you know, that's a huge complicated question of like, how do we modern day society, but like I said, just reminding people, like, at the same time, like, you don't need that middleman. Problems that, you know, I found with organized religion growing up, it's like it seemed like the middleman in a way muddied that teachings, and not that like I think most people who engage with psychedelic. Yeah, and I think most people who engage with psychedelic drugs, you know, people like Jake Knows Nothing over here, like over there, has the best intentions for, like, you know, facilitating and pushing along those experiences with other people, like, but and I think most people in the psychedelic community do as well. It's just being just keeping that aware of, like, I don't need the middleman. There's nothing wrong with having the middleman, and if I am going to have a middleman, I want possible, you know, and so yeah.
And to add to just this concept of trying to hold sacred where we came from in psychedelics and in this community, trying to remember these ancient cultures that paved the way for us, I think that, at least in my own personal experience, the psychedelics make that self-evident. Like, when I take a mushroom experience completely isolated on my own, I'm seeing Egyptian hieroglyphics and iconography from these ancient cultures that were doing these things completely isolated. So I think that in a lot of ways, the mushroom and other psychedelics they already have it taken care of in terms of preserving our culture, and all you have to do is take it and tap into it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a seriously good point.
As far as like a model of what a psychedelic community would look like, I agree with what Rob is saying in like the salon model, where it's this concept. I was watching a YouTube video about our culture is kind of missing community spaces in general, not just for psychedelics. And then so there's this concept called the third place, where it's outside of home, it's outside of work, somewhere that's public that you can move to and leave at your own will, and it's free. And I also like this idea of kind of like a multi-tiered model. Like you might have your close little circle where maybe you trip together and share ideas. That's the big thing for me too, is the community is where you can exchange ideas, inspire each other, collaborate, and then this community facilitates that. Yeah. And I like the idea of having like a tiered model, like a small group and like a medium, like the biker gang, and then like a big festival, and then having all of those models, including like the medical psychotherapy paired with the psilocybin and all of that. But I think we all come from a background of free independent use, so I think we're pretty much on the same page that needs to be preserved no matter what.
Yeah.
Because the only time I really meet trippy heads, other than my mates, and just say like randomly, just walking around in the streets and you see some hippie guy and like, oh, he gets some psychedelics. The only other place is going to festivals or events where people are likely going to take substances, and there's always going to be a wide degree of people who just literally want to get off their head. But then you'll be talking to someone and you intuit their energy, don't you? Like, this guy's taking it a lot more seriously, and there needs to be a place for all these people to meet up, exchange ideas, and heal each other. And obviously, as psychedelics become more legalized over time in different areas, I think that is an inevitability that there will be those areas for us all to join in.
Yeah,
And
just one thing.
I would say in terms. So yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead. Go for it.
Just
so yeah, I was
for
just
my the lag.
The lag is real.
Go, Jake.
All right. The only thing that I'll add it quickly. I would just say, from my perspective, like specifically being a nurse, my experience, like the medical community is really, really under-equipped for handling these things. So I obviously we need to have representation at whatever this community is. We need to have boots on the ground of people who can help you physically, medically from that perspective. But like in my 10 years, we didn't know what the hell to do. If someone came in on an acid trip, we were totally out of our depth. And so they're like, I guess I totally agree. There needs to be someone who knows how to start an IV and give you fluids and talk you off a ledge. But at the same time, I don't know how to develop a program to properly educate medical personnel on these things. Obviously, I think our content is like a great start to it. But I do think that we have to figure out some way of educating people on that piece to it. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
That's really interesting, man. Like anyone really bring this up as an issue, and maybe that's just from my reality tunnel, but this aspect of like, okay, there is going to be people who are going to have experiences where they get thrown into like a hospital setting or something like that, and I can imagine how that could only further amplify and damage somebody in a certain way. Right. Safety first, and like, don't kill yourself, we're not going to let you jump off the ledge, but also there is a sort of residual thing that happens, and I don't know if y'all have experienced after having a difficult experience, this, I don't know if you want to call it energy or what, that can be hard to shake. And again, a bad hospital setting or surrounded by a bunch of people who can't empathize with you and can't sort of swim in these waters with you, make it even worse.
Yeah, I was traumatized after I went running around naked in Manchester on my like super crazy ego dev, and like the police and the hospital staff had no idea like how to treat me, and the police were throwing me around. The nurses were like, "What the fuck are you doing to yourself, son?" and all this. I was like, "Mate, this is not what I need to hear right now. I'm literally like bridging the gap between the physical and like immaterial world, and you completely traumatized me." And I was literally like, my brain was fried for months on end, and I came around from it in the end. But like, what if I didn't come around from it? What if I was another person? I could literally like have been brought to suicide or something deep, like very serious like that. And that's a very real possibility that again, these people seriously need educating.
Yeah.
Well,
they don't know. They put psychedelics in the same category as like opioids and stuff. Like they don't. Same with alcoholics who like call weed smokers. They say they're worse than them. That's the problem with these hospital workers. And I'm not gonna blame them for it because they don't teach them like you guys were saying. But that's what we need to fix here. It's just like they put us in the same category as not saying they're bad people or anything. I'm not saying that, but just like
drugs.
There's different ways to approach it to help us. But yeah, I don't know how to fix it, but it's gotta.
And I would say just coming at it from this end, sorry, like there's no way in the current medical system, there's no way to integrate what I know about setting and emergency medicine. Those are opposing things.
Right.
It's the worst fucking place to trip. So I don't know how to fix that. That's the only thing I would add.
Jake,
just
build
a couple
off
things.
what you were saying earlier about a like a Western or a modern day psychedelic treatment, right? Or sort of that third place that Tyler was talking about. I think that basically what we're talking about here is reinventing the wheel of shamanism. And it's like, maybe they already have it figured out from thousands of years of experience. It's like, how could we learn from the best of the best if that's what's going on here? Or how could we integrate Wi-Fi into the jungle? Like, how could we get a best of both worlds situation, right? So I think that a lot of this is trying to reinvent the wheel when we could be learning from the people who've just done this for a long time. Yeah.
When they bring you into A&E when you're having an ego death or something, they need to have like a Native American shaman on hand that they can bring in and be like, just let him deal with him.
I start singing Icaros and shit. This man needs a course of Icaros quickly. There's just a couple of points that I just want to make on the kind of the medical. There's two bits of it that spring to mind. One is that, you know, when everyone's talking about the glories of the psychedelic renaissance and how fucking amazing it's, this is what they are not taking into account, is that if, like it's happening in the US, which I'm glad is, I'm not anti like legalization. I don't think society's ready for this, and there is
no
damage because who the fuck is going to is ready to start after the people who are losing the shit in the middle of a fucking, you know, in the middle of the street? That's going to happen. And then the second part of that is so now there's this model of, like, you know, psychedelics being used in therapeutic circumstances. This is a good thing, you know. I think this is fine, but it's being proposed as only model, and also it's given the psychedelics are for when there is something wrong with you. When there is something wrong, they'll put you in a concrete room surrounded by whale song with fucking soft furnishings. There'll be a doctor and a nurse holding your hand, and you'll be in this fucking and that's and I mean
like a
the
vibe.
thing that comes is that, like, you know, we all know that these substances make you extremely open and extremely suggestible. So he's suggesting to ourselves, if we're going through this experience, we're saying, concrete room to be safe. You need a doctor to be safe. You're not safe unless you're doing like this. You're not safe. And I've had messages of people tell me this, like, if you're not doing the medical model, you're some sort of fucking freak or something. Yeah, I mean, is that the future that we want? Like, is that the bull? Like, how many fucking doctors would you need so that anyone who's tripping can have their own concrete fucking Enya music? And it just seems like it's on the one hand, I'm glad some way, because it's like it's a way to get it into the mainstream. But the idea that becomes the only way or the established way gives me the. So yeah, that's all I just want to say about the medical side.
It'll be something, especially if that happens, if we go hardcore medical in the U.S., we have zero healthcare here. Like, I don't even go to the doctor, bro. Like, I'm not going to be able to afford a $3,000, you know, medical psilocybin intervention. So I'm afraid that if that's where we go, it becomes like this elite.
That's quite worrying, isn't it? Yeah. That's definitely a possibility as well with the way the world is.
I'm lucky I got full health insurance for my job, but that's still copays and.
Rob and Tyler, y'all are both talking about this sort of thing of, you know, how we would lay out this psychedelic. You know, I think there already is like, it was like this subconscious thing that happened, and it's already kind of been forming for a long time. Like you have your, you know, music where everyone kind of gets together in these lower factions. Like I think that's already happening. Obviously, in this weird like illegal black market / gray market type of area. But then it's like, you know, model is amazing. I'm glad that exists, and like I think that that's going to be a very useful tool for some people. But there is this concern that with what you're saying, Rob, like, okay, to get these things just legalized or whatever it is, because that's the big push, is like, agree, like, it's fucking ridiculous that it's not right. But, you know, with that push, it is the tool of like, well, here's the medical model and the medical study. It's like, is how is that going to merge with this sort of like how we already want to build this community? And so, yeah.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, then what does that, you know, because we talked about earlier about paying respect to sort of, you know, the traditions and stuff like that. Well, what are we saying then? Are we saying that the traditions are no longer safe? None of these fucking shamans have got medical training. None of them know how to do, you know, have Western standards. So we've got this weird, like, double standard where we're saying, like, or if some kind of tradition arises in the Western world, then it's going to have to be safe, and we need doctors, and we need fucking, you know, life support machines and all this kind of stuff, or else you're being abusive or you're being dangerous. But we wouldn't apply that to any of these traditions. So I think we've just got to get to this middleman sort of thing where I think a part of it as well, and I know this might be a bit sort of risky to say, is that there's such an over focus on like you know, safe in the current culture. Like, I need to feel safe and stuff like that. I don't think these substances are like safe in that regard. And these are challenging, difficult experiences,
and it can go sour, and, even when you're preparing for it like perfectly. And sometimes it will just go tits up, and you've got to accept that, and you've got to embrace whatever comes up. That's another thing that people need educating on.
Right, and I think this comes back. I think it comes back to like that basic question of like. And like I think that some people in the psychedelic community are losing their awareness and forgetting about that within this whole sort of like medical push. Is like, well, see, like here, Daddy Government, we're showing you why these things are not bad. All of us here like know that is not the case, and we don't need that sort of external validation from anybody to say that like this isn't a bad thing. I choose to interact with for myself. I'm a grown-ass man, and like, you know, like I'm not process of taking these things, so that's what I'm going to do. It's keeping that attitude of personal, like I shouldn't have to fucking explain to you why like, super bad for me, and why, you know, because it's like we don't on other things of like risks we can take. You know, you can drive a car every day, and that's extremely dangerous. You can go jump out of an airplane right now if you wanted to and skydive. That's an risky behavior. But when it comes to this particular thing, it's we've accepted this of like, well, I have to self.
I would sort of put this in the same bucket as stuff like around, like, you know, if I want to do something like especially something in behind the you know, the walls of my own house. If I want to get pegged in the ass with some massive fucking dildo, that's my right. Like, don't fucking no one's got any right to. Yeah, and so, you know, particularly when, you know, I've had people like come and say, what are you doing, like, you know, putting frog venom in your arm, you're mad and all this. Like, it's none of your fucking business, like, you know.
Do what I want,
exactly. Man, don't fuck off, funky nosy bastards.
You'll never stop me, crabs.
But yeah, that sovereignty, I think, is what we need to get to. I think that there needs to be a place for people to do what they want to do safely. So I'm glad for the medical model. I'm glad to the therapeutic model. I think these are good ways to it. But I think there is some value to be had in climbing up El Capitan without safety gear. If you want to do that, you should have the fucking right to do that. You're a human being. It's your fucking sovereign right to fucking do that. Yeah. So I think we need to, like, just it's getting away from this one size fits all thing. It doesn't. I think there needs to be, if you want to do the traditional thing, do the traditional thing. You want to do it at home, do it at home. You want to do it with a fucking doctor, do it with a doctor. And we just need to let society adapt to that way of thinking, which I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's ready for at all.
I would always advise people to err on the side of caution when taking psychedelics, but there are some people out there who are born to drink a whole vial of LSD, aren't they? And somehow it works for them. Obviously, most people shouldn't be doing that, but there are some people out there. Like, was that guy years ago? He died, didn't he? Is it Kalindi Ili?
Yeah.
He's a great example of that, isn't he? Yeah, he was designed to take that. Obviously,
he was a big dude.
He's a big guy.
But
I
mean,
something
that helps.
controversial.
Go for it.
I kind of hate the medical legalization of psychedelics. Not that I hate that is an outlet now for people, or an avenue that people can take, but I think that is probably the worst possible way to consume psychedelics and be introduced to it. Just simply for a few things. I think that the audio just changed. Oh, he just muted himself. I think that the biggest problem I have is that as it currently stands, the medical industry is not anymore capable or equipped to help people navigate. If anything, it's the exact opposite, because they're so deeply entrenched in a false idea of what psychedelics are. So they're probably the worst person to seek out as your shaman. And also, this is probably another very controversial thing, but in my opinion, I think that the modern medical model has turned into a cult in a lot of ways, where you can't really disagree or have independent thought from the current mainstream narrative. And I'm very leery putting psychedelics in the hands of any cult-like entities. That's how I see it.
Make a lot of money too. Like any monopoly, like $3,000 for a mushroom ceremony, or I can just pick them in my backyard and have probably a more meaningful experience, a more beneficial experience, you know?
Yeah, actually picking it yourself and then consuming it, the process of doing that feels really magical.
For sure.
Find it off some dealer.
Petting the cow, you know? It happened to me in Costa Rica.
Yeah, exactly.
Behind
That's
my
amazing.
Airbnb, I went up to a cow, I was petting the cow, it rained, grew some mushrooms, I ate them, and it was like, I felt like a creature on a planet. I didn't feel like an employee with a badge or a
stoned ape.
patient. Yeah, I felt like the stoned ape, and I felt like that was just the perfect setting
The ultimate
for
twist.
that sort of experience. It was great.
Yeah, we just need it for people who are going on their own. We just need to make sure that the best information can be disseminated. You know, like everyone has their own ways, but like, you know, and while emphasizing that it is dangerous, like you're taking a risk no matter what, still helping people make those good decisions of like not, you know, taking it in broad daylight in Times Square, or, you know, which they can do if they want, but you know what I'm trying to get at. Like, there's going to be a risk, but if
Respect the
people
hustle.
just kind of help people navigate from those who have a little been around the block a little bit.
Well, I think that's like the benefit, you know, what I, you know, to give us all a bit of a pat on the back here. I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about, you know, this group, because we all do our bit of talking very honestly and openly about these substances, the goods and the bads, the highs and lows, you know, really sort of, you know, what they can do, what they can't do, what you might expect. And I think that is a really valuable sort of voice, because there is so much dogma and so much people who like say, no, it's all, you're doing it wrong if you don't have a perfect, you know, Kundalini experience and all this. No, these can be quite dark and challenging experiences. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I think if you tell somebody and then they start having that experience, then they're going to start believing it's the worst fucking thing ever. So yeah, I think you know, yeah, go for it.
Thing is with life is that eventually you're gonna have to face the shadow, aren't you? You can't keep running away. Every single person, the whole like process of reality, in a sense, is at least how I view it. It's sort of like consciousness. It's eternally facing its own shadow, because like the beauty of processing the darkness is like unbelievably therapeutic, and that's one of the best things about psychedelics is it really does just get you to the fucking nitty gritty of it. Like you got to face yourself, and yeah, it will be dark because the whole point is that you're facing darkness. It's not going to be easy, is it? But yeah, we just us lot need to guide people in the best way we can, and I think we do a great job of it considering we're just little fucking content creators.
Well, some of us are. Some of us are you know, getting the 100,000 subscribers, mate. I just thought I'd crowbar that in for you.
Mate, I don't even. It's so weird. I bet you experience this as well, Trip Keeper. Like sometimes I'll just be walking about. Like I'm the most normal guy ever. I mean, I'm a bit weird, like, but I'll be walking out in Tesco or something, and then I just have like a moment. I'm like, oh my god, I've got 100k subscribers, and because I don't think about it, I don't have an ego surrounding like my YouTube at all. And then, but then it will just hit me like, holy shit, I'm really not a normal person at all, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, again, that sort of ties into.
I get messages.
Yeah, go.
No, I was saying I get messages saying like, "Oh my God, you responded to me." It's like, I mean,
Yeah,
I
same.
did. I mean, I'm a person. I'm gonna respond to you. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
just a normal
We're
person.
we're always talking about that, aren't we? I always pop up to your stories and I'm like, mate, I relate to this so much, like, because I do. This is one thing that, like, I mean, it doesn't annoy me at all. Like, it's fair play. It's just the human mind in it. But I do get quite a bit of, especially my Discord server. I get some like clearly quite unhinged people that I feel very sorry for, and they sort of like idol worship me, and I just have to get sort of brutal with them in the sense like, mate, I'm not more important than you. Like, put more importance on, like you said, Adeptus, your sovereignty. Like, take authority over your own life. And sometimes people get lost in like looking up to these content creators, especially if they're talking about stuff that we talk about, which is very, very profound, and they can get quite lost in like treating us like fucking modern day Jesus.
Well, a lot of them are living vicariously through you, and they really like the idea of being some successful internet figure, and
yeah, man,
and they look up to you in that sense. And then when you tell them to sort of look back onto themselves and sort of take authorization with what they're doing, they're like, well, that ruins the fun when I could just, you know, so they don't want to, you know.
Yeah, and like I think there's something to be said about.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
I think there's something to be said about carrying yourself like that, Vivek, and like, you know, having that, like, I am just a dude, like I'm just a normal guy, and you know, like I've experienced. I work in like typical business America with like middle-aged men, and you know, like, you know, I bump elbows with these people, and you know, like I carry myself like a in these scenarios, and then they're like, oh, it's this like mushroom on your neck. And then, you know, it's like, you know, like psychedelic drugs. Really gung-ho about psychedelic drugs, and also I went to prison for psychedelic drugs, and then it just was sort of like reality in this, right, dissolved, because, you know, it's just like, oh, I thought I was just talking to like this normal guy, but he's got thoughts in this different way of thinking about this, and I like that to me is like very having those conversations of like, yep, like DMT changed my life. Like, have you heard of DMT? It's, you know, it's just like I have a lot of it.
So
and it helped.
You know?
Yeah, tell us the story about prison.
Oh, my prison.
Yeah, I'm fascinated.
Okay, well, I'll give like a brief rundown, because I don't want to like make this thing about that. But yeah, when I was 19 years old, well, it was like 7. No, dude, I've already been prosecuted for this, so it's okay. But when I was about 17, you know, I heard about DMT on nothing else besides a Joe Rogan. Planted this seed in my mind of like, oh, like that is something that I would really like to experience. Already sort of like this appreciation for altered states of consciousness because of cannabis in my adolescence, and mind pointed in that direction, and in this weird, funny way, DMT just seemed to appear in my life. I had a coworker approach me at work one day and said, "Hey, man, DMT, and you know, here's his number." I texted him. He said I can come over after work and I did it with him, and you know, this individual has been my best friend ever since then. DMT, but just legitimately, like, he's my best friend in the world. Soul, you know, and so ever since then, it led me on this weird journey of this psychedelic I tried, and then I started experimenting with a bunch of other ones, and I started trafficking these things out of my apartment that I coined the. Because like I did sell weed and I sold mushrooms, but you know, anybody DMT, it was like, all right, come over to the launch pad. Started having these like DMT ceremonies and facilitating it in this way. Own like delusional 19 years old sort of, and like had all these crazy experiences with that. And you know, I did this, I lived this very sort of weird lifestyle here for about like a year. The police, you know, raided my spot, beat my door down, and I was hit with this reality. Dealt with the whole court system, and you know, did a little bit of time in prison, and you know, now I'm community supervision. And so you know, that was a big part of me starting my YouTube channel, was like, how do I direct this energy and this interest I have into obviously like some sort of legal avenue. So yeah,
fucking crazy.
And then I would love to
that young age.
Mad thing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, Gabe.
Doing God's work,
Yeah,
son.
Yeah, you took one for the team, dude.
No, and
So-
like
so
I don't
let's-
want it to like I would never. I'm sorry. I just want to say like I don't. You know, back then, like I will be honest, like yes, I was definitely incentivized by money. There was that definitely burn to share this thing with other people that I felt like was you know transformative in my own life and bit. But I'd be lying if I said like you know I would have been completely free. Like I made money off of selling magic mushrooms. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm not for my service. Like I know you guys are being funny and I appreciate it. You know.
Yeah, there's like maybe a little bit of ego mixed in at that time, but that's youth for you, isn't it? You know, that's the way it goes.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah, one question I'd like to put around the table is like, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic then about the kind of the future of psychedelic renaissance, psychedelic community? Just what's your general vibes on that? Let's just start with Tyler. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I feel optimistic with some caveats and some reservations. I think that we've seen how like things got squashed in the 60s because of, you know, backlash, and then there was a backlash to that backlash, and now we're here. And so I think if we play our cards right and do things in a smarter way, then yeah, it will afford the opportunity to heal millions, if not billions, of people in the long run. And yeah, if we do all the work to create community spaces and to do this the right way, then we got a psychedelic future ahead of us. But obviously there's all the dangers, all the charlatans, you know, shamans that have malintentions, and that's already going on now. So how is the collateral damage, like you said, is that going to be enough to cause a second backlash, and then we have to wait another 50 years? That's the thing I wonder. But overall, optimistic.
Okay. Jake, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah. So I would say I'm super optimistic. I would say it's hard not to look at everything through the lens of my own personal life, right? Like that's just how it is being a human. And I would say my own personal psychedelic renaissance has never been better, and so I have no reason to believe that won't be reflected in the rest of my reality. That's how I see it.
Loco, what about you, dude?
I think it's gonna have to take a miracle. Really,
That's a bit pessimistic.
For things to really go the way. No, I
Mic drop moment.
I'm a very positive person. I don't think I'm biased positive or negative. I'm trying to like realistically try to take all of the variables into account. But I think at the end of the day, like I believe that you can do quantum timeline shifts on psychedelics. Like my last mushroom trip, my last big one. The next day I woke up and everything was different. A bunch of people were talking to me. They were all behaving a little differently. Business opportunities coming in, people sending me money, like all happening like from the moment I woke up the next day. And I was like, am I in a new
Fucking hell, I want some of them
right?
mushrooms.
So I think that
There's a bit of that.
and this is a very woo-woo like fringe thing. This is far out, but this is
Go for it.
I'm
me
glad you
sharing
said
a
it.
thought, but
I completely
I
agree
think
because
that
I've
we
experienced stuff
can-
like that as well.
I think we can. I think that I could potentially live in a world where psychedelics are used in a beautiful, harmonious way with humans and nature. I think I could also live in a world where AI takes over and the singularity crushes humanity and shit hits the fan. So I have no idea. I know what's probably possible, but I think
Skynet.
for psychedelics to be a really beneficial thing and it runs smoothly over the next decade, I think that would probably have to take some sort of miracle. Something, yeah. So, I don't know. I don't have any real conclusion to the thing, but those are just some of my thoughts.
Vivek, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic in the big picture, but I also agree with Loka that the steps towards that are going to be extremely difficult. There's going to be so many hurdles. There could actually be a repeat of, say, how it was in the 60s, because you think, say, if you put yourself in the mindset of a psychedelic user in the 60s, Summer of Love or whatever, you're like, oh, this is amazing, it's never going to end, is it? And it's like, mate, literally, the very function of reality, quite literally sort of the dark aspect of it, will try and subjugate the sort of light side, if you want to see it in that, and like, even though it does sound a bit woo-woo, even if you think about it practically, yeah, there is always going to be like a counteracting force, and we can see that already in the legalization of psychedelics. I mean, even with all the steps we're taking towards it, there will always be these counter arguments from, say, I've seen a lot of like journalistic outlets be like, oh, here's why the MDMA therapy will never work, and how it's all completely in your head and all this. So there's always going to be that counterbalance. But I think in the bigger picture it will happen, but the steps towards that aren't going to be as simple as just, they're going to legalise it, everyone's going to take DMT, running around in circles, and everyone's going to be buzzing. It's not going to be as easy as that, is it? So, yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Trip Keeper, do you want to, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think the future is optimistic for psychedelics, but like you said earlier before, that like I don't think we're ready for it. I think that there's people in this world that definitely, I don't know if they're ready to see the world of psychedelics.
About it is that, like, this world is built on greed, okay? And there's a lot of money to
make at that business, and just for that aspect of it, I think people will start, going into that. But like, even past couple months of this, in a couple head shops, they're starting to sell mushroom gummies, like real Amanita muscaria. I know it's legal, but it's still like wild seeing that walking into a store. Like, I could just go buy it, I could trip, even though that's mustimol is a deliriant type, but it's not psilocybin technically. But
still altering your mind though, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's going in that direction. I don't know how long it's going to take, but with the way technology's growing, like AI and stuff, it could be,
anywhere from next couple years to the next 20, 30 years. But I do think it's going to happen though.
Yep. Gabe, do you want to chime in?
Yeah. No, I feel extremely optimistic about the future of it, and the reason, it's like those who don't learn from history are deemed to repeat it, and so like I think Tyler was getting at are very important. Like, let's remember, like, away from us. Let's not repeat these same mistakes. Let's hold this as a sacred thing, and. But I think that was a completely different that they were living in, with different people inhabiting it. And nowadays with the internet and the access that people have to information, right? It's not as easy, I should say, to sort of delude people when it comes. You have individual perspectives chiming in mass. You think about just the individuals in this room and what we've created towards this space and the opinion there, and then you extrapolate that out over like the people who are going to continue to compile on top of that. It's like, anybody who truly feels that calling or has that interest and wants to explore further, information is going to be out there. Like, the resources are going to be out there, which is not something that everybody had at 60s and 70s. And also, I brought up like a lot of different controversial things today about we and all these different things, and I think that's true, but something just like psilocybin mushrooms, like, practically anybody who has like internet connection, a place spores shipped to, and like a few bucks in their pocket, and the desire can grow their own mushrooms, and then they have the resources from the like, okay, how do I, first of all grow them, and then how do I go about interacting with themselves, and that sets them off on the journey. And I don't think that I feel like out of the bag in this weird way. I think that when you, and I don't know how it is in your guys' country, but when I look at people here in the United States, I feel like I see a lot of people who are suffering, who fulfilled lives with a lot of mental and physical ailments. I think a lot of people are starting to become more aware of that in themselves and deciding for, I would like to be healthier and I would like to live a more fulfilling. When you push people to that brink enough, I feel like there's going to be more people who cross that threshold of like, okay, enough of your bullshit. Like, I'm take back some of my personal sovereignty. And so I think that what's going to unfold is going to be this big, sort of terrifying, confusing mess in this awesome way. And I don't know if mess is the perfect word for that. I think it's going to be very important that like individuals like all of us continue to and not hold back and not fall into the dogmatic thinking into, like I said, just truly like, can I be of service?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you said, Gavin. I think the way I kind of phrase it, I think this will all go wrong if we lean too hard into it becoming institutionalized in like the government providing things. And this is why I'm not really super interested in this whole legalization aspect of it. I think a decriminalization aspect of it is much more important than a legalization.
Yeah.
But I like kind of what you said. I think people, I want people to have a relationship with these things, and I think the way you get that is by growing these things yourself, or is by doing your own sort of extractions and things like that. Of course, that leaves kind of like a grey area as to what you do with things like MDMA or 2CBs. I'm not quite sure there, but I think in terms of like if these things become over medicalized or over capitalized, or it just becomes just like part of too much of an institution, and then it takes away from that kind of sovereignty, then I think we fucked it up, and we're going to have a kind of a problem there, because it's just going to become hyper controlled and at the whim. So I'm kind of what I've tried to do in my own life is really focus on self-sufficiency, like the things that I want to consume, make sure I can grow, get, even if it's not me personally doing it, then it's within my circle of friends. That kind of builds that community element again. And so in that aspect of that aspect of personal sovereignty, I'm pretty optimistic. And in the aspect of what's happening on the capital way, in the medical way, with the just ingress of bullshit fucking politics and identity bullshit fucking just seeping in like fucking a fire stinking shit all over, like this has just got nothing to do with psychedelics, then I'm just like, yeah, forget all that stuff. As long as I can fucking have access to the things I want to have access to, I'm really not overly focused on the political capital shit, because that just seems like another like possibility of noise there. And I think it's I'm kind of like, power to the people, like as long as people have got the capability to do it, and yeah, I mean, because none of us really give a fuck what the law says to do it. I mean, no. Obviously not.
Breaking the law.
I have a question for you to follow up on that. Do you think that there's an issue or a potential issue with psychedelics being too accessible? Like, you want to keep the barrier of entry higher?
Gatekeeping.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, I don't. That's a funny one. I think people who want to be able to get these things should be able to get these things, but I've got to be honest. The prospect of like that somebody could be, go out for a few beers on a Friday night, go into the off license and buy a fucking bottle of ayahuasca terrifies me. I think that, like,
that's something
but we're already seeing that to an extent. Like you said, we were talking about like how freely available these gummies and some of these are very fucking strong substances. So I wouldn't want to be the guy who's like,
like a snotty ass gatekeeper, like, no, these my drugs, you can't have them. But likewise, yes, some degree of control I think should be in place, and this ties back into this kind of the model I was talking about earlier about having physical spaces for these things, because I don't think it's good that you could pick these things up at 2 o'clock in the morning at a gas station, but I think if you went into like a place where it's like, you know, like Alex Gray's got with his Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and you went there on a full moon for a ceremony, and you sat there, then I think you should be able to do that. So it's just finding that balance between like decent access, but not. I mean, I've got 2 kids. I don't want them being able to buy fucking 65 strength fucking salvia extracts. You know,
which you could actually do that in the UK back in the day, couldn't you? Before I actually agreed in the sense that obviously I'm not for like completely stopping people altering their mind, but that was dangerous. Like, that was the first psychedelic I ever tried, salvia, and like I really did not know what I was going in for, and I could literally just go into a shop and buy it easily. And like, there's so many like kids nowadays that could easily do that, especially with like Gen Z today. It's very, very different era for them growing up. There's a lot of like drug users much earlier on nowadays than say when I was growing up. A lot of people just got on it like later on in school, but now it's like people in fucking like year 6, like literal kids in fucking primary school, and they could easily go into a shop and buy fucking like 10 Amanita muscaria gummies and go and speak to fucking some demonic entity and destroy their life.
Well, yeah, and that's it. And there is a perception there that if you go and buy something in the shop, it's safe. And you saw this with all these fucking bath salts and all these kind of like, you know, these legal highs.
Yep.
And I had some of those legal highs, and they were fucking horrible. You know, my heart was pounding. I was like sweating. I thought I was gonna die. You know? So there's,
I've seen this.
Yeah,
I've seen this common thread between what they actually sell for a short period of time in the smoke shops. They're selling salvia. They're selling Amanita muscaria, and what was the other one?
Spice.
K2 Spice. It's like
3 of the most extreme ones.
This seems like a deliberate give them the most horrifying psychedelics to scare them away from them, to put the stigma on the whole thing for the public eye. You know, it
and this gets to like
orchestrated.
underlying issue that I'm sure we could have a full like on this alone, and that is the problems with the war on drugs. And honestly, like I am of the sort of belief that, you know, something like, first of all, the I don't want to say the invention of it, but the incentive to in a store, and then the incentive for somebody to walk into the store and say that that's what I'm going. I think most of that is rooted in the fact that, you know, like it or not, do have a desire to change their state of consciousness from time to time, and some people, it is a matter of availability. Like I kind of assume that most people within this discussion have been pretty resourceful on like, try DMT, or I want to do this or that, and so really, I have these different ways of, also different ways of testing my drugs. And you got to understand, like your average bear, the average consumer is not going. A lot of people don't approach it like that, and so you know, I love like individuals like you guys who are sort of these walking examples of like, you know, one thing that somebody about children is that, you know, if you're raising a child, that child is what you tell it to do. That child is going to do what you do. Like, so lead by example. And I think that the same thing can be said of like. I think that the same thing can be said about sort of like, you know, what you want to call us, the psychedelic YouTubers or whatever. There's this deep-rooted sort of desire that people have, and that's why they watch our videos of like, all right, so here's somebody who's who's swam in these waters, and like, so I just think it's important that we continue proper education and like, hey man, we're going to do this. We're going to be like little DMT ninjas out here. We're not going to be DMT idiots, you know, like.
Absolutely. So all about the harm reduction. I mean, that was a bit of a meme, wasn't it? You know, in like the early days of like YouTube, we see like substance and stuff. They were like, this video's all about harm reduction. It's about the time I took 40 bangs of fucking acid on my ass. Like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, a lot of people who are into like a lot of like drug tubers, psychedelic YouTubers, they literally just put the disclaimer at the beginning because they have to get monetized. And like, mate, I put the disclaimer at the beginning because I literally think that like these is serious shit, and like I actually don't advocate people to take fucking 16 grams of mushrooms. I just personally like sharing these stories because they're so wacky, they're out there. You never really hear of this sort of stuff, and I have to be very, very careful, especially when I do get messages on Instagram like, "Oh, bro, I just watched your like 35-gram mushroom trip report video, and I'm thinking of doing it as well." I was like, mate, please have a fucking long look in the mirror before you do that.
Yeah. Kind of mentioned that is not because I've got anything against harm reduction, because I mean I don't put the harm reduction thing on my videos just because I don't think it needs saying. It should just be baked in. It should be that.
Yeah.
Guys like Psych Substance, they turned harm reduction into a fucking farce. That phrase just became a joke because clearly what they were talking about wasn't. I think if you're gonna talk use that kind of banner, which I think like you do, then I think you should be. It should be like this is actually what you can't be doing that and then saying something completely fucking off the wall like what Psych Substance does.
But well, you've got to maintain your. But yeah, I can see how you can end up down that path. I mean, he's in a completely different sphere to us. Like his audience is absolutely massive.
Plus,
it's crazy.
So yeah, he is.
But yeah, you've got to maintain your integrity, haven't you? And it can't just be about like constant growth and that. Like the main reason I literally just love it. Like there's no ulterior motive at all. And I think a lot of these YouTubers go on for a very long time, and you can tell they're sort of losing the passion, especially when they start using like ridiculous sort of like clickbait, sensationalist titles, and the content sort of quite like.
Tour trips.
Oh mate, yeah, no. He's definitely looked at our channel, which is quite surreal because one of the trip reports that he shared was this guy actually wrote it for me via email, and then he posted it on Aerowid, and like I sort of like opened that experience up to the world, and then he posted it on Aerowid, and then he read that out, and I was like, whoa, this is really strange because obviously, I mean, fair play to Psych Substance and people like your mate Tom, like they're probably some of my very biggest inspirations, and they opened the floodgates for drug related content on YouTube and really just paved the way for it. So I will always have big respect for them, even if say like Psych Substance does sort of go off the rails a bit, but that's just the human journey, and everyone's on their own path.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming up to the end
fucking
of it now.
skits can't.
Yeah, so just one last sort of like question I just want to put round the table just before we all sign off. From like your experience of being within this kind of like creator community, and we have these kind of like pipelines to all these people within the psychedelic community, what would you say is like the best or the strange that you've ever had with somebody? It could be in your comment section, someone who's messaged you, someone you've met on the street. Just what's the best or weirdest interaction that you've had? Let's start with.
Okay, yeah. One that jumps to my mind is about a week ago. I had this add me on Snapchat, and I guess he found like my Snapchat. I would put it like in my descriptions and stuff, so my videos like, hey, if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that. If you want to follow me on Snapchat, do that. So this guy from the UK messaged me, and he told me that the way he found he started telling his dad drugs and like his experiences with psychedelic drugs, and which I thought was took an interest in his son's psychedelic experiences, and then it provoked his father too to like want to learn more about psychedelics, and so somehow his father came across my YouTube videos, and so apparently this dude from the UK had like watch my YouTube videos together now and talk about it, and I just thought like that's
class.
Cool and really sweet. Yeah. And also like one of the biggest ones to me is I've had a mentor guy who I've a year now, and he found me through my channel, and like he's really like held me accountable and helped like push my own personal growth in this unique way, and like really appreciate him and sort of relationship is going with that. And so yeah, it's just like funny what happened. People talk about like manifestation a lot, and exactly what I wanted to do with my YouTube channel. It was like I said earlier, it was like I have this obsession with this thing, and I just around that. I don't know if there's going to be trip reports for the rest of my life, or paintings, or music videos, or podcasts, maybe all of them. Maybe just truly live as this full that. And so whenever I opened that floodgate, it seemed like the sort of connections that started talking to you guys right now, talking to my mentor, talking to this guy, just all started to, has just started to happen and continue to happen.
Beautiful. Are you trip keeper? Anything
Love it.
wonderful happened to you, mate?
Well, there's been a lot, but the craziest stuff, because I don't focus on just psychedelics. I've done videos on pre-workout and inhalants, but like I can pull up one right here. It says a classmate in 1984 died from huffing gasoline in the family shed. Passed out face down in the gas container, drowned in gasoline. 12 years old. That's the kind of stuff that fucking freaks me out when people comment that, because most of the time I don't get happy comments. I do get a lot of supportive stuff like through my DMs and stuff and comments, but like when I see comments like that, it just kind of like I get kind of really sad about it and emotional. It's like I'm having this effect on people that they want to, share their
people, and that's the part of YouTube I do enjoy. I like to see other people's experiences and how they react
to other substances and stuff, but yeah, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. I couldn't name one thing that really caught my eye or anything, because there's just so much there that I get now. Maybe back when
me and you will have a lot of similar experiences, won't we? I mean, I always talk to you about this. We have a lot of overlap in our audience, and sort of the same way people like talk to us, treat us, and the same comments and that. But yeah, in my own personal experience, I've got two things. This is possibly the most surreal experiences for me being a content creator. So the first one is hilarious. I was at a Comic-Con in Manchester a few months ago, and this guy didn't explicitly say that he knew who I was from the channel, but you can just tell. So he was in a rainbow furry wolf suit, and he came up to me out of nowhere, and I looked just completely normal. Like, I didn't look like I was a hippie or a psychedelic user. I just looked like some average guy. And he came up to me and said, "Oh, you look like you do psychedelics." And I was like, "You what? Like, how do you know that?" He's like, "Oh, I've just got a good way to intuit it, and like, you just look like you do." And I'd literally just revealed myself on camera for the first time within that week. So I was like, "Oh, this guy knows me, doesn't he?" And then what does he do? Fucking whips out his bag and he's like, "Do you want to go and smoke some DMT with me in the disabled toilets?" I was like, probably not the right place to do it, but I appreciate the gesture. And then on the other. I know, yeah, you couldn't have wrote it. It was perfect. I loved it. If that guy's listening to it now, please DM me, because that's just hilarious. And on the other flip side of it, and I know he'll be watching, my Discord moderator Orcsgod, he came to this festival. I'm pretty involved with this festival. It's in the Peak District. My mate runs it. It's called Keith, and I sort of promote it, and I do the DJing there and do like the videoing, and I put out videos saying, "Oh, please come, and if you want to come to this festival and support it, it's like perfect vibe for psychedelic users." And my Discord moderator came, and fair play to him, he came by himself, and it was amazing. He's quite a bit younger than me, and like he just got into psychedelics through sort of like, say, the stuff we do. He watches all you guys and everything, and we had some seriously profound experiences together, because there was like this dome, and it was the first ever time when I'd experienced something shamanic in my life. We were all doing the sort of, where they do like the singing, the chanting, the om, and we were all singing in harmony together, and I was on acid, and I was having sort of like not a bad trip, but like, when everything just gets a bit too much, like you're not having a bad time, but just like, well, I need to chill out. And I was at a festival with lots of heavy drum and bass music, so you couldn't really go anywhere to chill out, but this place was ideal, and me and him went in there, and we all just like held hands, and like I'd actually lost my thumbnails, but so much weird stuff was happening to me, like symbolically speaking. I trapped my thumbnail in a door like a few months ago, and it sort of was like a sign from the universe, like, "Oh, you're shedding your skin," and it came off the minute I walked into that dome, and I was like, "Whoa, this is weird." The woman in there was putting like dragon's blood ointment on me, and then the other lad, the Discord moderator, he had sort of like a lot of like emotional blockage, like we always do, and it's one of the most healing experiences ever to actually have one of my fans meet me in real life and actually engage within the beauty of the psychedelic experience together. And that's what I'd like to do more in the future for me personally, is again, like we've been saying the whole time, is making these safe spaces for us, and really just hammering in on that. It's pretty sick.
Beautiful. Loka, do you want to come in on that, mate?
Yeah, I think something, I guess, somewhat relevant. I started the Loka project less than a year ago, so this is all fairly new to me. But I went to as soon as I started the Loca project, I went to Costa Rica, and this is when my Instagram started blowing up, and I didn't really expect. I had like a 150,000 followers at the time, but I didn't think that was enough for people to start noticing me. But I'm in this small town in Costa Rica called La Fortuna, and it isn't particularly touristy or anything like that. But I'm chilling with my buddy, and we're about to go get some weed from the guy down the street, and that guy's a local, right? And we meet up with him, and we're hanging out, and my buddy that I'm with, he's always showing everybody my visuals. He's so proud of me, right? So he's showing this guy my visuals, and this guy goes, "Oh yeah, I saw that yesterday. I liked it. I love that guy's stuff." And Coco's like, "No, this is him. This is him." And this guy, this local from the town, this is the guy that was giving us weed. He looks at me and he's like, "What? What do you mean? Like, you made this?" I was like, "Yeah." And he starts freaking out. He's like, "Dude, I love all your stuff." He's like fangirling at this point, and I'm just like, how is this even possible? Like, I just started this stuff, and this, and then multiple people in that small town, tourists, stuff like that, they'd say, "Hey, Loca," they somehow knew what I looked like, and I was just like, this is unreal. Like,
yeah, surreal, isn't it, when stuff like that happens?
It's unbelievable. It's like, it's the same feeling I get when something happens on a mushroom trip that's impossible, and I'm like, it really feels like the universe is winking at me, but yeah, that's something interesting that's happened related to all this stuff. But yeah,
you have a lot of synchronic experiences when you do this sort of stuff. Yeah, you start, like how you said before, Loca, when you took like 3 grams of mushrooms or whatever, and then you started noticing things the day after, where it's like, oh, this is just sort of like the Matrix becoming aware of itself. And I've had experiences like that, and it is sort of like the universe winking back at itself. And this also ties in with, say, what Trippett was going on about, and like the concurrent theme of the eyes. It quite literally is, say, the universe looking back at itself. No matter what your beliefs are, like in the grand aspect of reality, I think a lot of us can agree that consciousness sort of is like one of the fundamental aspects to reality, and it makes sense why that appears in psychedelic visions and stuff, because quite literally amplifying your consciousness. And there will be a lot of synchronistic experiences where it's like I can literally feel the universe guiding me towards something, but it will never force you to do it. It will just give you the hints, because at the end of the day, if God or the universe forced something upon its creation itself, however you want to call it, that would actually be the devil, because the devil subjugates and controls, and classically God would allow you to make mistakes and learn from it and not push you down any sort of angle, but sort of like hint at you and what to do. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. Jake, do you want to come in, mate? Have you got an experience you want to share?
Sure. So this one is kind of outside of psychedelics, but I consider everything in the realm of psychedelics. But I had one experience where I was walking outside at night. I was walking my dog, and I looked up, and I felt like this weird presence, like similar to like a mushroom experience where you kind of feel an entity. And I was smoking weeds. I was just kind of joking around. I like shouted, like, "Show yourself!" Like, I didn't expect anything to happen. I was just kind of being retarded. And all of a sudden, this UFO comes shooting at me from this like star cluster in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first time I ever seen like a UFO that vivid, and like it was insane. And I just sat there staring dumbfounded for like 5 minutes. Like, I don't really know what the fuck just happened. And then that night, I have these like dreams or astral projection experiences with these alien figures who are telling me that they're from the Pleiadian star cluster, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I looked it up. That was the fucking star cluster that the UFO shot from. And so then I literally went out of my way to find a ufologist and started. My first episode of my podcast was talking to this ufologist so that I could like trick him into helping me. And so I just like was relating this account. Once I posted that video, I had this dude who was, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Ink Masters, but he was a contestant on Ink Masters, and he reached out to me saying that he had the same exact experience with his girlfriend like a month before, where he was like looking at the stars and a UFO came out from the Pleiades, and then he's been in contact with entities that claim that they live there or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know any of that if that's real, but there's at least one other
That's
dude that's
wild.
experienced it.
That's amazing. I would love to talk more in depth with you guys about aliens and sort of paranormal stuff and the connection between that and psychedelics. Because I mean, if you get deep into the rabbit hole, there's a lot of very, very interesting parallels. I mean, even just the fact of like the grey alien stereotypical aspect in our culture and all the experiences people have on, say, like DMT and with entities, definitely some form of connection. Obviously, people get a bit lost in the way they connect it, and everyone has their own ideas. But it's just cool to talk about, isn't it? Really.
Well, let's make that the topic for the next one. Then we'll go deep
Oh,
into
get
all
I'll mark
that
that on my
stuff.
calendar.
But Tyler, have you got an experience you wanna share, mate? Your interactions with your
Yeah.
audience?
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say thanks, Rob, for organizing this using your organizational powers. This has been really cool.
I've loved it. It's
Oh,
been
no,
amazing.
thank you
I wanted
guys.
to do this. I wanted to do this for so very long. So thank you for
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's my pleasure, guys.
Awesome, man.
it up, my lad.
My experience is someone left a comment on the on one of my videos, and it was like, hey, you know, if you're ever in Houston, I'd love to hang out. And I'm like, yo, I'm from Houston. And so I got in touch with this person, and then it turns out that and I'll shout his username, Ghost, if you're listening. He's probably listening to this right now. So it turns out he grows his own mushrooms, and he invited me to come visit, and like he just gave me a bunch, like an ounce. And when I took these mushrooms, our trips have been interacting in this like very mysterious synchronistic way. Like I'll give you one example that in my visions in the peak of mushroom bliss, I was seeing this blue butterfly, this black and blue butterfly. And then I told him about this, and he was like, dude, I see that too. And not only this, but he said that the tub that he was growing the mushrooms in, he had a little blue butterfly sticker on the inside of the tub, like facing towards the mushrooms. And
That's
so
mad.
it's just
And
this
my little
weird.
brother saw those too on mushrooms.
Really?
Yeah, this is crazy.
Mate, that's weird because I read a trip report about this guy having a common theme of butterflies appearing in his trip. So this is some serious synchronistic shit at play right now.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, mate. Mate, I'm fucking overdosing on red pills right now.
About a month ago, I made a painting, and the painting that I made was like this little garden thing with these. It was this black and blue butterfly with like eyes on the wings. So when he's telling this story, I was like, "Yeah,
Dude, and I
I'm
saw
not at
eyes
home right
all
now.
over it.
Yeah.
When I get home, I'll send it to Discord as
It's a
soon
blue
as I get
morpho,
home."
dude.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Wow.
That's one of the ways that the like mushroom entities communicate with me as well. So, just so you know. Wow.
Well, I'll
Rob,
just share
what's been your weirdest experience with sort of like fan interactions and that? Because I don't think you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I won't mention some of my weirdest ones. Maybe I'll save that for next time. But I will mention probably one of my most recent ones, which was an email I got just the other week, and I actually mean I've not responded to this guy yet, so if he's listening, I will respond to it. But it just touched my heart because you've probably all had a message something like this where it's like somebody who's taken DMT for the first time, and the excitement and the astonishment was just like, it just came across in every word. First of all, there was no punctuation in any of this fucking thing. It was just this paragraph of like, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I saw your video and you look like you know what I'm on about, but this is just fucking amazing. Like, this is like, it was just this torrent of gushing, and it was so sweet and so like innocent. And I just thought, geez, I remember that it just inspired in me that feeling of like, wow, dude, I'm so jealous, because that first time when you're just like, the world, everything is possible. It's just, I was like, okay, I'm gonna reply to this guy. I just need to find time. So, dude, if you're listening, I will find the time, because I'm not taking the piss. I was laughing in like joy at this guy's letter. It was so fucking cool to see that, and just to recognize that emotion, like, in where we've all been there at one point. So.
Yeah, I've had that as well.
Anyway, listen, guys, I just wanted to say, this has just been awesome. And first of all, apologies to anyone for all the technical problems. We'll try and work on the lag aspect and stuff. But in terms of the conversation, I have loved this, guys, and I would love to do it again. Thank you all so much for making the time for it. I put the links to everybody's channel in the description below for us. So for anyone who's listening, if there's anybody who particularly like what they were saying, go look in the description. All the links are there. I think for most of us anyway, you could like Google us, our names and find us online. I think we're big enough to hit the search engines these days. But yeah, guys, I just want to say big thank you to you all. And yeah, shall we wrap it up there?
Yeah, you too. Can I just say one thing? I wanted to say that. I just wanted to say that what's so cool about this conversation is so very clear that we're all on the same page and on the same wavelength, but we all have different flavors of how we articulate ourselves, and that's the beauty of what we're doing with this content creation stuff, is that we're all like part of this community, very sort of integral to it online, but we're not parroting the same shit, are we? We've all got different varieties of experience and perspectives, and yeah, there's been no disagreements at all. You can clearly tell that we're all in it together. It's sick.
That's what psychedelics do. They
well
make
said,
you
mate. Well
just
said.
well together, communicate, and it's a great thing. And if they use it properly, it can be a magical tool.
Puts you in tune.
Right.
Well said.
Whenever we get off, I don't know if you see the 99% uploading. Like after Rob ends the call, we'll have to stay on the browser for it to finish uploading, so that it doesn't upload for Rob there. But I appreciate you guys, and like this has been a lot. Again soon, you know.
Definitely.
I'll post something in Discord and let's set it up.
We need to get Josie as well next time because she's essential to this as well.
Josie,
mate, Trip Whip, I love him. The Flaking. Yeah, Trip Whip is amazing. He's actually my biggest inspiration for doing all this, you know, because I remember stumbling upon like his most popular video, and I was like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do, because I loved Psych Substance and Your Mate Tom, but I was like, they're a bit different to Trip Whip, and Trip Whip's so like down to earth, so casual, like that's how I sort of want to present myself as well. So big ups to him. Yeah, fucking sick cunt.
Awesome. Yeah, well, let's see. At least it can get on.
Now Josie's in there, and I'm staying with them right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Trip Whip. Trip Whip's in the background.
No, it's Josie.
Nah, Trip Whip's in my basement.
Oh, really? Ew.
He's tied up.
Tied up to the radiator.
On that bombshell, yeah, awesome guys. Thanks a lot.
What a twist. See you guys.
Let's do this again soon. Ciao. Bye, guys.
All right, see ya.